All right, guys, welcome in. Welcome back to Above Ground World News. We're live. This is going to be a very interesting show. We're taking a look right now at the Sahara dust layer, and we told you this would blow apart the storms down here, and it did, but they tried to do a blockade, but it doesn't look like they're doing a very good job. But anyway, let me bring in Elana Freeland. She's probably one of the most knowledgeable people I know. Help waking me up, and then I'm just trying to do my part now. But hey, Elana, welcome into the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mike. I've listened to you many times. I love your weather reports, and I'm happy to be here to fill in where I've gone since I used to spend a lot of time on the weather myself.
I've been following you for years. I mean, you're probably one of the first groups I think I joined on Facebook.
Yeah, it's been years. It's hard to believe how fast time goes. I would like to dedicate this to the few people who are activists and they are no longer with us. Certainly Rosalind Peterson, an amazing activist, one of the first in California. Dr. Rosalie Bertell, who was an epidemiologist and wrote the amazing book, Planet Earth, The Latest Weapon of War. Both of them are now on the other side, rooting and helping us, I assume. And then Suzanne Mar Mossman, one of our great Canadian activists. She is not with the movement as primary that she once was, but I'm always grateful to the amazing work she did, particularly in putting up a couple dozen advertisement boards all over Ontario regarding chemical trails. I never forget activists because it's a dangerous job. I want to make sure that people know that besides the two books I've written, Chemtrails HARP and The Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth in 2014, and then in 2018, the Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. Now there will be an essay of mine and 8 other intrepid women from Europe, mainly, mostly professors at universities over there. We have a book coming out very shortly through a French publisher called Global Warning. Geoengineering is wrecking our planet. I'm really excited about that. These women have written amazing essays, so keep your eye out for that. It will be in English.
You want to talk about your new stuff that you're working on, or you want to talk D-Wave?
Yeah, I can do that. I started out years ago, certainly with weather and with Morgellons. It was sort of a two-pronged interest that I had for the first book. I was very good friends with Clifford Carnicum. We lived in the same area down in the Southwest at that time, and we would have long conversations about what he was finding in the precipitation he was collecting after the jets would fly over northern New Mexico. And so I read all his papers at that time, wrote a whole chapter on it, chapter 8 in the first book, and then went through all the weather that was happening at that time and had been happening for several years. The hurricanes in particular, tornadoes, earthquakes, tidal waves. I looked at all of them in terms of HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska. And I had read Nick Begich and Gene Manning's book, Angels Don't Play This Harp. Truthfully, even though they said they shut it down in 2013 and then passed it over to the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and it's no longer a primary, that is simply not true. Now I'm looking at HARP through another lens, which came to me after Billy Hayes and Jim Lee helped to guide me to write the Under an Ionized Sky book and looking at Space Fence Lockdown. And now it has gotten very tiny, what I'm looking at, very, very small. It's the very hidden, very serious technology known as nanotechnology. Now I'm in the process of writing and finishing a third book in the series, which is about synthetic biology and transhumanism as they relate to nanotechnology and the Space Fence Lockdown.
Like you said, everything is becoming so small. Just like all the new Doppler radars and X-rads, a lot of them have been upgraded with the $7 billion upgrades, and now they're all phased array. They're just like mini harps all over the place. They're
Mini
everywhere.
harps, exactly. Just like 5G is. And if rumor is true from someone whose name I can't mention, if it's true, then we actually have the phased array antenna already in the 4G. So a working title of the coming book is Transhumanist Lockstep, Geoengineering, and the Wireless Nightmare of Nanotechnology, Synthetic Biology, and Targeting. That's what I'm doing now, all day, every day on this, because I have a deadline for November. And I really want this book to be my last book on this particular topic of the chemical trails, the ionospheric heaters, the space fence lockdown, the 5G Internet of Things lockstep that they are drawing us into, and that plugging us into would be more appropriate to say. So I'm in the place that I like to call the cauldron. I always check the weather here. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. This is where, when they move the weather systems, the moisture systems up from the South Pacific along the coast, bypassing California, of course, and dumping some rain on Oregon and then some up here in Washington state. I watched the setup of the clouds. I watched them laying the clouds yesterday and knew they were going to give us some rain. Hardly anyone knows this is going on. People who really aren't looking up and really aren't doing much analytical thinking at all of what their perceptions are telling them. So I'm pretty alone up here. I don't really have anyone to talk to. So I get on radio shows, and I'm now talking to many people who also are studying all of these signs and wonders of an era that obviously is not the era of yesteryear. I perceive the large picture of what's going on now with the geoengineered weather and all the geoengineering. And I always follow Clifford Carnicom, the independent scientist, 2005 system, though I have tweaked many of the terms. He foresaw 7 basic operations going on under the name of geoengineering, and that includes the weather engineering, the chemical and electromagnetic atmospheric operations. That would include plasma experiments going on above our heads, planetary and geophysical operations, which would be what some people might call terraforming. You know, it's as simple as Hurricane Katrina moved all the poor out so they would never see their homes again, down at the international port at the mouth of the Mississippi River. And then now it's being restructured. Also, Hurricane Sandy at the ports of New Jersey and New York, trashed those ports, moved all the poor out, and refurbishing that all the way to Paradise, California, burning down whole areas with various weapons, space weapons, and in order to restructure those places as well. So we have a lot of that going on. Then the 4th operation is directed energy warfare operations, and that includes all sorts of weapons here on the ground and up in the stratosphere going on under C4. That's command, control, communications, and cyber warfare. Then we have the surveillance neural operations. That would be what people might call mind control from space and triangulation here on the Earth. And the nanotechnology is very involved in that. And then the biological transhumanism operations, in which we are being changed biologically, and that includes our brain and consciousness, remotely by means of sensors, microprocessors, and other electro-optical technology on the nanoscale. This is the most reprehensible, in my mind, the hardest to see. In fact, you cannot see it. You are going to have to follow the research of people like me, because you are not being told the truth about the nanotechnology and how extensively it has been developed and what the plans are for it with the 5G Internet of Things and the smart cities. And finally, the seventh operation, the most enigmatic in a way, detection and obscuration of exotic propulsion craft. We have had people seeing some craft in the plasma cloud cover now that we have, which is not the same clouds that we used to have, which are basically moisture and particulate clouds. These are plasma creations. You can sometimes see, especially triangular craft, hiding in the clouds and even producing their own plasma. It is all about, to me, the secret space program that investment analyst Catherine Austin Fitts has done the number crunching to see that it isn't just $21 trillion that is missing from the American budget. It is $60 trillion missing. And much of it has been poured into this secret program that has very big plans for the future. And we are one of the plans because we can look at it in a variety of ways. But I like to start with the possibility, you try to get into the shoes of the enemy in order to see how they're thinking, how they're setting everything up. And it appears to me that one of the most disturbing aspects to the secret space program devotees at NASA and all the different departments that are, like, I especially think of the NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. What they're all a bit upset over is that these radiation belts above the planet still make it very difficult to get the vulnerable human being beyond those radiation belts and still alive and not completely devastated by the radiation. I mean, they were blasting the Van Allen belts to kingdom come back in the 50s. And they even stupidly made yet another radiation belt with this blasting away. But they want a human being who can be somehow what they call a BCI or a BMI, a brain-computer interface, a brain-machine interface. And then that updated, enhanced human being, if indeed it is a human being anymore, can then make it through the Van Allen belts, that's one thing, and then be able to communicate with what they are assuming the higher intelligence entities of this solar system and the galaxy can also communicate with them. So it seems very logical to them that they want to create a human being who is more of a cyborg, not just an androgen, but a cyborg, the brain-computer interface. And so that program, it's not really one program, it's many, but that overarching commitment to the BCI model of a human being is well underway now. And we see bits and snippets of it in the news. Meanwhile, we are all still breathing what is falling down with the chemical trails, whether you choose to see it as simply from the combustion chamber of the jet fuel, like the iron oxide and other ingredients. And Jim Lee is a very big expert on what's in the fuel. You can choose to see that, or you can see it as a supplementary system, or you can see it as separate drones are programmed to lay chemicals that have to do with the transhumanist agenda, not just with jet fuel and economizing and all of that. So there was a time when I was in doubt as to whether what we're breathing is simply collateral damage from the secret space program. They've got to have an ionized sky here in the troposphere. They've got to have it also in the stratosphere, because they're running all kinds of wireless communications and chemical, certainly nano experiments, all with the space age in mind, not particularly anything to increase the consciousness of human beings, protect the health of human beings, further the evolution of human beings. No, I thought it was collateral damage, but the truth is that we are being made to breathe very specific things so that we become the hosts and test tubes and petri dishes of a variety of specimens that have been genetically engineered. Certainly, Morgellons is one of the ones, and it's one of the early pathogens that was genetically engineered and that we have become the host of. And Clifford Carnicom has done the lion's share of work on that. And then many other people now, particularly Morgellons sufferers, have taken up the gauntlet as well and are studying, using themselves as the test tube and the petri dish for their own discoveries as to what makes them better, what makes them worse. And certainly one of the things that cannot be contested is that the Morgellons and other entities that we have breathed in and that we are hosting in our bodies and brains are very sensitive to wireless technology. That wireless technology, turning the world wireless, was a really huge move to make sure that we would have an atmosphere that everyone and all of life could be plugged into, literally. That has to be maintained now at this point in the evolution of that technology of keeping the atmosphere ionized, almost like a mini ionosphere. They have to keep dumping all these conductive heavy metals that are on a nano scale. And for people who don't know, 1 nano equals 1/1000th of a meter. Very, very tiny. You cannot see them. And these nanobots, these nano sensors, the microprocessors, the pathogens, even fungi from the upper atmosphere, all of this is being dumped in the stratosphere, and then much of it filtering down to us, and we breathe it in. They go through the olfactory bulb up our nose and straight to our brain, because they can easily, given how tiny they are, bypass the blood-brain barrier. So we have no protection in our brain for this technology that the military-industrial intelligence complex has seen fit to inundate us with for the last 2 decades minimum. And so now I'm at the crux of why I work so hard. Weather warfare and controlling the weather without telling the people that you are controlling the weather, that's a big enough sin in itself to have turned the weather that used to be for, thousands, maybe millions of years, our relationship with Mother Nature and the wind and the rain and the snow and the sun, all of these cosmic elements we were on such friendly terms with. And now that the weather is, in my mind, completely controlled, it's not a matter of, was this natural? No, it's all engineered. I have not seen any weather that I would call natural. I suppose if I lived down in the South Pacific, I would see some moisture systems arising on their own, and that would be very refreshing. I would love to see that. But it's not just the weather that is the culpability of this sociopathic regime that actually has the hubris to want to control the galaxy. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, this, and to use us in boosting toward that end, and then introducing, and this is in chapter 3 of the Under an Ionized Sky, introducing the nanotechnology to Congress in 2002, just to have it rubber stamp it. No experiments, no long studies to see the impact of nanotechnology on human beings, on their consciousness, on their health, on their immune systems. No, nothing like that. Everything in a hurry, everything, let's just see what happens. And so now we're stuck with it. I mean, this nano stuff is everywhere. It's not just in our brain. It's in food, all packaged food, no question about it. It's in clothing, new clothing. It's in that new car smell that everybody likes. It's in that smell. Everything I can possibly think of. So we are breathing that every day. So that's with the conductive metals. The conductive metals make it very serious for immediate health. And so I'm highly recommending to people that they have regular, and when I say regular, I'm thinking minimum once a month, regular purges to get nano-sized particles, entities, whatever you want to call it, out of the body. That may require a hair analysis. You may want to see what your heavy metal numbers are, especially what is in your area, because not every area has the same chemical mix, because they are dealing with geomagnetics, and every area has different geomagnetics, and they want to really find out as much as they can about all the areas on the earth as to what constitutes the doctrine of full spectrum dominance all the way down. Nanotech, that would be Tony Pantalaresco. I always recommend him. Tony is pursuing this with a vengeance. Has an engineering background. He is experimenting with all kinds of ways to get nanotech out of our bodies. I myself do the baths. I do the, at least once a week, I do the Epsom salt, sea salt, borax bath, which is a very nice combination to get the polymer sheen off of your skin, which you probably don't even know you have, open up those pores so that the nanotech can come out. Can I see them? Can I see them, the little guys swimming away in my bath? No. But if you do the bath several times in a row and have the bathroom dark and have a good flashlight and turn it on, you will see a scum forming on the surface of the water. And it's weird, isn't it? Because I'm telling you it's real, but you cannot see it. You cannot put it under your microscope if you have one. You would not be able to see it unless you had a very high-powered electron microscope, which costs a fortune. And that's very convenient for the masters of the universe, that they can have a technology that we can't really check. If we're waiting for the experts to come forward and tell us, well, that's a problem, because many of them are forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. Many of them are threatened with career loss, with death, with family problems, whatever it is. I think that many scientists who are aware of just about everything I've said are really caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't know what to say to them other than your conscience must be your guide, no matter what your decision might be. As far as other things we can do, I always recommend to people to learn about how the technology works is essential, so that you can, forewarned is forearmed in a way, in the sense that you know how it works, you know what you're facing, even though you can't see it, you can't analyze it, you can't dissect it in front of you, you know how it works, you make an assumption that it is happening, and then you try different tacts to counter it. This is what all of us are doing who are now awake. And, you know, people are waking up every day. I've seen thousands awaken in the last 2 to 3 years. It's a really remarkable number of people are finally waking up. The idea that we have this tiny world operant in our bodies and brains might be very disturbing to people. It might give you the creepy crawlies. Sometimes you can even feel some of these entities moving around under your skin. But we've had parasites and microbes for many, many, many centuries. I mean, our gut has worked very well with a certain balance of microbes that serve in our digestive and assimilation processes. So it's not entirely foreign to us that we are hosting very tiny entities that normally we don't notice. The difference is that this technology can be remotely communicated with and programmed and reprogrammed. So many of these nanobots, nanobot means a nanorobot, they have microprocessors in them, very, very tiny, tiny computers, which make them transceivers. They also have sensors. They have sensor programming. So they are gathering data for this big data push that, is everywhere. They are gathering data inside our bodies, on our scalps, in our brain, and that can all be harvested by remote fusion centers, by what I like to call the laptop boys in Colorado Springs. This is the Internet of Things, really. Yes, your washing machine and your dishwasher and your cell phone and your car and all your gewgaws, they're all involved in it too. They're all on board. They're all on the internet. But also you have this other military industrial intelligence layer that you can't see because you don't have access to the specs of those frequencies that they do. They have the frequencies by which they can harvest data from the nanobots inside people's bodies, animals' bodies, soil, the water, everything. Because the entire environment of the Earth, just as Dr. Rosalie Bertell foresaw, has been weaponized. And so what once was the cradle of nature is now captive to a wireless technology that seeks to dominate every level of life. And if that means that some levels of life don't make it and are no longer alive, well, so be it. Because the full spectrum dominance is essential to the secret space program and those who serve it. And this goes back to, I like to mention this, I read Joseph P. Farrell's book, Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, written in 2012, in which he spells out the Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev's 3 phases of technological achievement that any civilization aspiring to a real space age must achieve. And the first phase is full spectrum dominance, planetary control. And that doesn't just mean, military things, right? Soldiers, arsenals. No, it means the entire planet. This is very, very important to us who don't suffer from megalomania as much as our masters do. This sounds insane, but it is what is being pursued. Kardashev then went on to say the second phase, and I think we've already begun working on that in tandem with the first, is control over one's star and its systems. And our star is our sun. And, we keep hearing about solar minimum and solar flares and CMEs and all these things. All of that is to be controlled and utilized by those who understand how those natural cosmic processes work and to be able to then turn them into anthropomorphized processes that can be controlled for domination. And then the third phase Kardashev mentioned, which is control over one's galaxy and its systems. So this is how far. I've done a lot of work on these guys, looking to see how they think, really, really concentrating on a very different kind of human being from myself. This is what their objectives are. If we have that as a backdrop or a context, we can then examine all these things that really amazingly are connected. This is kind of like that song, the knee bone is connected to the shin bone is connected to the back. Each thing is connected to the next. So let's take the geoengineering and the weather engineering. Connected to that is the nanotechnology I mentioned, and particularly let's look at the aluminum. I mean, you can look at any of them, but the aluminum is particularly pernicious in that it's also connected to the vaccinations that are producing harm in our new human beings just arriving on planet Earth to have wonderful, great lives. Many people I know are working very hard on the vaccination issue, but it is connected to the geoengineering. It's not just the aluminum in the vaccination that is producing the problem. It's the aluminum we're all breathing in every single day. And all the time in utero, these infants have already been breathing that in through the umbilicus from their mothers. And the mothers often are holding the cell phones and chatting away to their best friend. And so these infants are also in utero suffering from radio frequency and microwaves without the mother's knowledge, because she has not been educated regarding this technology that big fat corporations that are actually military contractors are making a fortune from. So there's the vaccinations, there's the radio frequency and the microwaves of wireless technology. Name anything. GMOs. Let's go for that. GMOs are connected too. We already know that Monsanto had an aluminum resistant seed already in the making before any of this particular program started 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So, what is it? What is in the GMOs? What has been done to them to support this transhumanist move of breaking down our immune system? Most people I know eat genetically modified foods and think it doesn't matter. I mean, this is a point of contention between Tony Pantalaresco and me as well. I've been eating organic for 50 years. And does it show? Well, I think so. Everything works. I'm 72 years old. I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13. I don't really have any need for the medical establishment. I certainly didn't vaccinate my children. I lied through my teeth every time I had to, no problem. So does the GMO food contribute? Yes, it does. It's acid producing. Acid producing leads to Morgellons. Morgellons loves acid, hates alkalinity. You name anything that has to do with health, and I can lead you straight to geoengineering, because this geoengineering piece has been laid upon us to undermine our immune system so that we can be so-called enhanced remotely through the nanotechnology that we have been breathing in for 20 years. Are you beginning to see the picture here? This is very, very serious. Not only is this a human rights crime, this is a crime beyond belief. When I have to really somberly face what I'm up against, think about it, Mike. I mean, you do videos, and videos are certainly the way to go today. Nobody reads. People can't concentrate anymore. And they went through this terrible American school system, which taught them to hate reading and hate knowledge and see it all as arbitrary. Nothing really is a foundation stone. It's all just an opinion, just a personal opinion. Why do I write these books? Because we have to consolidate what we know. And, this is kind of crazy, because as I'm writing, everything's changing. I mean, they're bringing this technology online so fast that where could I go to get a PhD in this subject? Where can I go? Well, there is nowhere, because it is being pumped so fast that we have to put the pieces together ourselves, because, well, there are a lot of military papers and patents online. There's a lot of data, as Jim Lee has certainly proved. He's found a lot of it, that people are just overwhelmed by the data. It's just too much. And now I'm telling you that all these things are connected to geoengineering. Well, that's overwhelming too. How can I get a handle on this? I mean, at least in World War II, we were taught to hate the Nazis. So we kind of knew, yeah, okay, it's Nazis. But now all our institutions are criminal, from the city level to the county level to the state level to the federal level to the international level. I mean, it is a desperate time. And if people tell you this is a wonderful time to be alive, well, I agree. I'm thrilled to be alive now, Mike. Could I have asked for a more challenging, complex fight? I don't think so. It's taxing, and my intellect is pretty damn good. It's taxing me to the max to really paint a picture of how this big thing, machine Earth, works. for these megalomaniacs. And in the studying of it, trying to prepare the public to study too how it works, to build mental pictures of seeing how this is working for a lockdown, not just on the planet, but on our own human evolution. It may sound like, well, okay, but who wants to know that much and get all depressed? But unless we know our circumstance, how can we counter it really wisely? Get emotional? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to help us. Go kill some guy at the top of some pyramid of power? No, I don't think that's going to work either. Move to an island, I'm constantly asked by people, where can I move to, Elana, to get away from this? Truthfully, I don't think there's anywhere to move, because this is our fight. This is our watch. But we need to get a little sharper and stop wringing our hands and stop oohing and eyeing over the latest terrible weather, the latest Damien coming down the road. This is something that we're in an era of transition. What worked yesterday as far as political activism, I don't see it working now, because I'm too aware of how easy it is to pulse us. We can be pulsed through our cell phones. By the way, I don't own one. We can be pulsed through our cell phones to have any emotion whatsoever. Want anger in the streets, like in Hong Kong? No problem. Just broadcast it. You want to just affect one person in a crowd? No problem. Pulse them with that frequency, for that emotion, for that thought. Like those shooters, those kids that are forced to shoot others and then end up suicided themselves. This is a technology from hell. There is nothing good I can say about it, nothing redeeming, but it is our challenge to face this time and decide on how we're going to face it, how we're going to stand our watch in this era. And each of us has to decide individually. There is no proven way to do this, but what we can do is really learn as much as we can about how it works. Just like Mike and everybody else is doing, a lot of people are studying the weather and doing amazing weather reports. I mean, isn't it a joke that there are even meteorologists on mainstream media? They're like comedians or something. They're certainly not doing weather reports.
Yeah, they're just
they're reading their cue cards.
Exactly. We call them the salad boy actors. It is, as you were talking about, I think we're all here for a reason. Like you said, we're here to fight. I follow the signs, spiritual signs, which guided me into doing this. I mean, I was totally asleep. I had no desire to do what I do now, but then I followed these little signs that I got, and I just happened to be talking to a preacher on a phone, and he just told me the time's now. You know what you need to do. And I mean, just out of the blue, we were talking about something totally different, and I just started getting these cold chills. And from that day on, then I started noticing things. I started seeing all the signs around me, and I don't have a lot of time, so I just try to do what I can to help. I have kids and grandkids. They're all awake. They know what's going on, and hopefully once I'm gone, they'll step in and keep trying to fight the fight. I mean, I don't think people realize, they've been
That's great.
dooming the earth, ever since putting dams in and steering the rivers on the ground. Then they go to steering the rivers of the sky, and now they're steering the stuff in space. They want to completely control everything. And if it wasn't for people like you and Billy Hayes, I know he's out there in the chat out there. I see him out there. We're all here for a reason. We are all put here. We all have our duties. And that's why I always tell everybody, you are the resistance. You have to be an activist. You have to join the fight, because there's a lot more of us than there is them.
You can hate Christianity all you want. You can hate Judaism. You can hate Islam. These are all organized religions that were here as a backbone for periods of history when people needed a reminder that they are not just pieces of meat. They are not just here as placeholders living meaningless lives. That is not how this works. But we have had masters now for quite a long time who have controlled the media and have controlled the educational system and made it seem as if this is it. This is all there is. I was a 60s activist. I have not gone to sleep all these years. I have stayed awake and just moved from issue to issue in figuring out where best to put my skills for the future. That's how we all need to look at it. Where can you put your skills? If it's with your family, it's with your family. If it's with your community, it's with your community. However it is, each of us has come here with a gift, and we must not bow to this conditioning, because really, wait till you see the 5G assault. Just wait till you see that. And has it begun? Yes, it's already begun. In some areas, it's stronger than in others. It's already happening. They keep telling us they're planning this in a couple of years. And no, it's all being rolled out now. What I want to prepare you for is that with this nanotech in your bodies, you've got to really become a good observer of your own thoughts and your own emotions. Whatever might be manipulating you that doesn't really sound like you. Hey, this is not the way I usually think. What's going on? Is that my feeling? Where did that come from? Why am I suddenly feeling desperate? Everything's going fine. Those sorts of things. I want you to really question whatever's being pulsed, because that will be what is happening. The other issue, of course, is the doctors, the medical establishment. What are you going to do about that? That conditioning that you've received that, oh, I've got the flu, I'll go to the doctor. Or other than a broken bone, truthfully, I don't see any reason to go to a doctor. There are many other options, but it means taking full responsibility for your health instead of giving that responsibility to the medical industry. That has not served us very well. And, I studied Chinese medicine when I was a young woman, became very fascinated by it, learned a lot, and have been able to use that all these years rather than go to doctors. However you do it, you need to take a good look at your conditioning and start to dismantle it so that you can take over the power of your own lives. Because when this 5G Internet of Things, 60 hertz in the wall thing gets going, I don't know where you're going to run and hide. I do know this, that consciousness, to have a really firm consciousness and an inner life that gives you tremendous backbone in that consciousness, will not be easy to overthrow for this technology. So that's where I'm putting my bet, is we have never really, as Americans dedicated to freedoms, we have never really tested out consciousness as a true defense. And that's what I'm asking for now everywhere I go to speak, every radio show I'm on. I'm asking that you really take cognizance of what is your conditioning and what is true, and be willing to have the courage to admit to having been wrong about things like vaccinating your children. Whatever it is, you're going to have to do some research. You can't just go and say, oh, well, Elana Freeland said this, or well, Mike Morales said that. You've got to do your own homework and really start taking a look at all these different technologies, along with decisions you're making to interact with them, such as the medical industry, the big pharma industry. Whatever it is, it needs a second look, and maybe a third, and some analysis, and really get that thinking apparatus go. If you still own a television, you might think about that. I've never owned a television, not once. It's because these are weapons: cell phones, telephones, my computer. I mean, I've got to have a computer because I write books, and I also make my living from writing other people's books. So I have to have a computer. But otherwise, take a good look at every piece of technology you opt for to put your money into. Maybe you do love entertainment. Maybe take a good look at that, at the entertainment element. What is entertaining? Can you have an entertainment that you learn from too at the same time, given how time is so limited now and things are moving so fast? You see what I'm getting to is this really looking things over now, not freaking out, not the, oh my God, there's nowhere to hide. No, let's take this day by day, minute by minute, in order to see how we're going to make our stand. This is our watch. We are not here by accident. We chose to be here now, and we have each other. The chemtrails movement, the anti-geoengineering movement, whatever you want to call it, on the internet, we've been amazing. Yeah, we have our little bickering bits and pieces, but it's been amazing because it's a democratic movement. I now have a site of 4,000 members, and they do amazing research and share it and discuss things. No name calling, no silly comments, but really getting down to the brass tacks of the technology, of all the different aspects to the technology that I mentioned. This is what democracy is becoming now, is the serious-minded taking a really good look at technology that is amazing. And I constantly say to myself, these masters of the universe at NASA and Cape Kennedy and et cetera, they are doing amazing things. It makes me wonder what they're in alliance with, actually. So I'm not sure about that, but I am very impressed with how well they've thought this whole thing through, all the way to AI, all the way to infesting us with nanobots that can be programmed remotely. That's pretty clever. But it's time for us to awaken and take up our own weapons of consciousness in order to meet this biggest challenge that we have now.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I can't agree. I gotta agree with everything you said. And one thing I did want to go back to is when I say spiritual signs, I'm not talking about going to a church or nothing like that. It's all within us.
Yes.
That's what I think people don't realize. It's you have to search inside yourself, and the help is there.
I think it's what I meant, Mike, that these organized religions, not at all judging them, they have had a huge role in human development. And I certainly am glad that people have places to go to fellowship with people of similar beliefs. I've had that from time to time in life as well. But there is the really important part is the individual, because we're born alone, we die alone. And in between, we meet many, many people. And many of those people have very different beliefs from ours and test us. We have a huge life, and I've had a very huge life I'm really grateful for. And, at times I was lost, and then I found myself, and then I was lost again, and I found the whole drama of youth, midlife, it's parenting, everything is essential. And when that spirit comes knocking, it generally is not when you're with your group that has all the same belief. Generally, when you're off on your own and you hear that call, you hear that knock, whatever it is, according to your conscience, is this something I can obey? I mean, especially now when we have a technology called voice to skull, V2K, which can send all manner of spiritual messages to people electromagnetically. We need to become very discerning of from whence these messages come. A lot of people in organized religions, large religious beliefs, it would be very easy to use that technology in such an environment as a church or a temple or, targeted individuals are very high on my list as far as people who are giving me a lot of information about a lot of the directed energy weapons being experimented on American citizens. I would say conservatively that 1.5 million Americans are being targeted with directed energy weapons in the name of experimentation and training Homeland Security agents. That's what I would say. I've definitely spent a lot of time on this area to figure out what is going on. Why are these people being mercilessly targeted? But one of the things to be careful of is, yes, the spiritual epiphany, the God speaking to us about something that we should do. That's all that stuff really needs to be thought through thoroughly, because the technology is there to really make a vast pretense that could lead you into a vast mistake.
Right, just like the voice of God technology that they are already showing off. You know, they used it over in the Iraq war.
In Iraq, yep, that was it. That was voice to skull. Or they also call it synthetic telepathy.
You know, that's why I kind of keep everything within myself, you know. I do have a Bible and I read that, but I mean, I'm just saying, you know, to really get the answers, you'll find them within. They're plain as day once you open your eyes to the signs. You just have to follow them. You have to know to look.
Yeah, and it has to be the individual who does that. It's not a matter of finding the right collective. If you have a PhD or are a doctor, you have more believability, more credibility. You are that much more vulnerable. I have a nanomaterials scientist writes me and has called me a couple times. He went to a very prestigious university, and then I guess he was sort of on the payroll, and then he bowed out because he didn't like what they were doing, and they are targeting him mercilessly. He's fleeing all over the world for safety, and they follow him everywhere. So the PhD is really in a conundrum. A lot of people wonder, why don't these scientists speak out? Well, I think I might know why they don't. I think they've had a visit, gotten a message, and it might even be their family. So that's how low and criminal it's all gotten.
And now it's the war on the truth, slowly taking away our speech, making things harder and harder to try to get messages out. I mean, it's just all out war. It's a war for humanity.
Mm-hmm. That's how I see it, and that's what I operate out of. And I am a soldier, and I'm doing my job. I see you as the same. Some of us have different jobs. It takes all of us. It's a democratic movement. It really is. Because there is no structure. There's no leader of this movement. A lot of people think, oh, Elana is a leader. No, Elana is not a leader. I mean, I'm one of the people. I'm one of the ones that's speaking out, writing books that, very few people read. I think the book has sold, the Under Ionized Sky has sold maybe 10,000 copies now. But it's hard going reading when all the technology in people's lives is undermining their ability to concentrate and their memory. People need to get that squared away. These technologies are not just about convenience. They are weaponized. And the wireless technology is particularly culpable, stealing our concentration and our memory and videos themselves. I mean, I have mixed feelings about videos, right? When you're watching a video, you go into alpha wave. That's how you watch a video. That's how you watch TV. You're in alpha wave. That is not thinking. You need to be in beta wave as well. And I can do that, but I have to do it consciously, to keep my thinking alive. Pause the video, go back over it, look at something, listen to what Mike said, think about it, move on. It's got to be conscious. It's got to be conscious. And then, you're really getting something from it that you're going to take away. It's not just movie time, pass the popcorn, wow, zone out. No, it has to be a lesson, something you're really tending to. Then you can keep that reading capability, which, really most people don't have anymore.
The school system doesn't make it any better. I mean, you look at the tablets, they have these kids using, and the Wi-Fi is pointed, right at their private parts, making them sterile. And the amount of weaponry that they're using on the kids is just completely insane. Now they're trying to fuse them with the gender thing and all that stuff. It's unreal.
And in the schools, I substitute teach sometimes for extra cash. It's the routers, Mike. It's the routers. I mean, there are so many routers in these schools. These kids are just all cooking, and then the girls get the headaches and nobody's putting it together. You don't need these free computers from Apple. They're killing you. Anyway, I keep my mouth shut because I wouldn't last as a substitute if I didn't.
Hey, I always wanted to have you on the show. I never really had a good enough reach now I'm glad I got you on here because you're just got so much knowledge. Like, I'll have to go back and listen to this 2 or 3 times to pick it all up. Want to thank you for coming on here and spending some of your time with us.
Years ago, when I was starting to do radio broadcasts, I was just such a stentorian. I mean, I was doing detail, man. I was doing numbers and really do a lot of tech. And now, like I said, I'm concentrating on the human element because I can flash those credentials for understanding tech. But what about how people are going to face this? How people are going to be able to turn this around in their private lives? That's the important part. And that has to be how they're thinking about their lives and what they're conscious of. That's the key that I'm moving in that direction now, because this is a long war and there will be many battles. It's like the people that have done tremendous work on fighting the 5G and Internet of Things. This is just one battle. There will be more. This is going to go on and on for a while because people are slowly waking up to how we're being locked down in this, and I didn't explain the space fence. We're all plugged into this space fence that starts up in the stratosphere and comes down to ground level in all these machines that are calibrated together. As Billy Hayes was so great in helping me understand, the calibration and the recalibration has to go on and on and on in order to keep that lockdown tight. And now with the nanos in us, we are plugged in. There's no question. It's not a future tense thing. It's not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. No, it's already happened. And so I have to be careful also. I be more conscious of what I'm thinking, what's going on, just to not be taken unawares. And I was taken unawares when I was targeted. I really was. I was not paying attention. And that was a big lesson to me, Mike, and it might be a lesson to you too. You've got to pay attention now. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll definitely get you back on whenever you want to come on here. Just like I told Billy, anytime he wants to come on here, I do a show every night. So I got openings all the time.
That's amazing.
So if there's something you need to get off your mind, just send me a message and we'll.
Would you be interested in doing any targeted individuals if they wanted to come on?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. And you probably won't hear from me until I get this book written, because I'm all over the place. I mean, I hardly know myself these days. My eating is weird. My sleeping is weird. And yet I'm so happy to be writing this book. I'm just ecstatic. Every morning I wake up, I'm so excited to be able to keep writing this book.
Well, yeah. We're all glad you're doing it, so that's going to help a lot of people. We'll spread the book out. We'll get some people buy the book because it's stuff people need to know. I mean, people.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And read paragraph by paragraph. Okay, all right, Mike. Blessings. Stay safe.
Hey, thanks for coming on here, Elana, and we'll see you when you're done with your book. And you have a good night.
Okay, all right.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks.
Okay, good night.
All right, guys. Want to thank everybody for joining us. Special thanks to Elana out there for coming on the show. Thanks to everybody out there that shares this information out there. Thanks to my wife for letting me do this stuff. Anyway, guys, much love. Be safe. We're going to have to rise. We're going to play a song called Rise. Make sure you share this video out. Get more people to learn about this stuff. Be an activist. Be all you can be. Armor up, no fear. And here we go. Crank it up.
Finally, have atmospheric sensors that can detect when people are screwing with the weather so that we know once and for all. And I have a PowerPoint presentation right here, which you guys can check out, which goes through all of this stuff, my solution, why it's necessary, why we should do it, who the major players in weather warfare are, the 10 technologies and all of that sort of thing. So you understand the problem, the solution, and why this is important. We've got to really come to some consensus on this. And this is my solution. If you can find a better idea, please let me know. Why not ban weather modification altogether? Bans don't work. They ban nuclear warfare testing, but Kim Jong-un was over there blasting off nukes left and right. So what we had was a sensor network to know when it's happening. The same is true with weather modification and weather warfare. We can ban it. It is banned. Weather warfare is banned. Weather modification is not banned. But we need to know when it's happening, where it's happening, so that we can hold people accountable. Period. And I hope that you guys will look through this presentation, because transparency is a start. It is people actually screwing with the environment, experimenting in the sky, and you are the recipient of that experiment. So without that and verification, you must trust but verify. We need a solution, a citizen-powered, Earth-observing sensor network in your backyard to detect your rainfall, see what's in it, look for electromagnetic manipulation. So that's the goal here, to build a system that can detect when people are screwing with the weather, have it displayed in real time. I hope to build the world's first climate viewer for your backyard. We'll be able to do that when I get my Patreon to a certain level. I'll be able to purchase the parts to start building one and, testing it out. Hopefully sell them to other people, or have like an open source version of it where you can build it yourself. But regardless, we've got to come up with a solution that works, and I think this is it. How it works: require notice, catch bad guys, no fear. That's you. Because unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. And this is my solution. You can get in touch with me. I'm on climateviewer.com. Jim@climateviewer.com is my email. And I hope that this video has been informative to you, because knowing is half the battle. And with information comes great power. And with power comes great responsibility. So please, share this video, like this video. If you didn't catch it live, comment on this video. Let me know what you think. What did I get wrong? What did I miss? Am I missing something here? Is there something not on climateviewer.com, climateviewer.org, weathermodificationhistory.com? Where am I wrong? I'm totally open to criticism. I'm willing to debate anybody on the planet, any scientist, anybody. And I hope that you guys will do the research, because you need to. I'm a rugged individualist, and I believe in America, and I'm using my free speech to try to help other people around the world who don't have the freedom of speech that I have, to be able to understand that this is a worldwide problem, and we have to deal with it in our lifetime. So with that being said, love you, mean it. Remember to use this information to attack ideas, not people.
Weekend, 88 Mobile, Fairhope, 88 Pensacola, Destin at 88.
Right now, dew points in the 20s and near 30 degrees across central Mississippi. Well, hey there.
I don't know what's going on, but Zane doesn't know. Are you sure? Are you crazy sure?
Well, we've got a little bit of interesting things going on right now. Take a look at what's going on right now. You want to point out the weather right now?
Yeah, there are farts everywhere and toots. It's crazy. Yeah, there are farts everywhere and toots. It's crazy.